The recent Chinese military missile showcase feature a range of prominent missiles, including the Eagle Strike Three Brothers, the Thunder One air-launched missile, and the Dongfeng 5C doomsday missile, which was even launched from a museum. While the visuals were striking, they also raised significant questions. Unlike the 2019 showcase, which demonstrated significant advancements, the 2025 event displayed older technologies with additional features, new designations, and a lack of key test launch footage. To assess the credibility of these missiles, three key criteria are applied. Is it a genuine upgrade? Is it in mass production? Is there evidence of public testing? Based on these factors, it is necessary to evaluate whether each missile represents true combat capability or is primarily intended for display purposes. Dongfeng 61 Mach 55 Physics imposes limits. The Dongfeng 61, which has garnered attention online, has been associated with exaggerated claims about its capabilities. Among the most prominent is the assertion that the missile's terminal speed could reach Mach 55. Yes, you heard that right. Mach 55, which translates to 18.7 kilometers per second. To put that into perspective, this speed surpasses the escape velocity required to leave the solar system, 16.7 kilometers per second. Once launched, would this missile even return to Earth? It might not stop at the solar system, but go on to travel through the galaxy. In reality, all intercontinental missiles upon re-entering the Earth's atmosphere typically reach a speed of only 20 to 25 Mach at most. Even the US space shuttle, re-entering the atmosphere at about 25 Mach, would burn into a huge fireball, requiring the highest grade heat-resistant materials. At Mach 55, the temperatures generated by air friction would be unimaginable. Missile defense systems would not even be necessary, as the air itself would act as a wall, burning the missile to ashes instantly. Think about meteors. When they enter the atmosphere at speeds of dozens or even hundreds of Mach, how many actually land in the backyard? Most burn up in the sky. The reason missiles can safely return to the atmosphere is because scientists design perfect ballistic trajectories and thick thermal protection suits strictly controlling speeds far below the absurd Mach 55. Let's assume, for argument's sake, that such speeds were physically possible. From a military perspective, a missile traveling at Mach 55 is an extremely foolish choice. Even at speeds over 30 Mach, no missile defense systems can intercept it. Reaching 55 Mach would only melt the missile, offering no additional benefits. And as for the so-called 42,000 kilometer range, this is also completely unnecessary. A range of 20,000 kilometers is sufficient to strike any corner of the globe. Chinese internet users humorously pointed out that if the Dongfeng 61 had a range of 42,000 kilometers launching from Lop Nur in the east, it could circle the Earth, pass over its own launch site, and still land 2,000 kilometers further, striking Beijing. Rather than chasing such meaningless numbers, it would be more practical to make the missile smaller and lighter, facilitating more flexible deployment. Why do such irrational rumors gain traction? Military fan circles are often breeding grounds for these false claims. In an environment where nothing can be verified or disproven, people feel free to boast, lie, and spread rumors. After all, there is no evidence, and anyone who does have evidence won't dare to reveal it. As for some commenters sarcastically remarked, I've heard it's Mach 100 now. The US president's head is about to explode. The White House is in chaos, and we're winning. This reflects the absurd mentality of we don't talk about science here, only about winning. After all, the average citizen will never see if the missile can even fly, how fast it can go, or what's inside its shell. When assessing claims about Beijing's missiles, there are a few key things to consider. First, is the missile speed being reported for its travel through the atmosphere, or is it in space, where there's no air resistance? Second, at such high speeds, what material would prevent the missile from burning up upon re-entry? Finally, is there any real non-computer generated test footage of the missile in action? If such footage is missing, the claims may be unreliable. An important observation is that the Dongfeng 61 and the previously displayed Dongfeng 41 appear nearly identical. Even in the details of their launch vehicles, this raises two possibilities. One is that the Dongfeng 61 may simply be rebranded Dongfeng 41 with a new model name and paint job, presented to make a strong impression during the September 3rd parade. Another possibility is that it's a strategic move designed to mislead enemies' intelligence, prompting them to waste time and resources analyzing a potentially non-existent new model. In either case, the Dongfeng 61 does not seem to live up to the expectations suggested by its name. The three Eagle Strike brothers, a hypersonic civil war or a headache. The Eagle Strike triad, featured in the recent military parade, have been widely discussed online, with many articles portraying them as a revolutionary addition to China's naval capabilities. However, a closer examination reveals several inconsistencies in these claims. Chinese state media describes the Three Eagle Strike missile as being designed for specific purposes. The Eagle Strike 20, the largest of the three, features a 500-kilogram warhead and is based on the Dongfeng 21D, intended to incapacitate aircraft carriers with a single strike. The Eagle Strike 17, a naval version of the Dongfeng 17, uses a unique maneuver at the edge of the atmosphere to evade interception, making it unpredictable. Finally, the Eagle Strike 19, the smallest of the three, utilizes advanced scramjet technology for low-altitude, high-speed cruising, prioritizing flexibility and stealth. But the reality is far from idealized deception. There are no verifiable, publicly available videos showing these missiles being tested at sea, hitting target ships, or being deployed on a large scale. What has been shown are parade models, computer animations, and blurry images online. In military terms, without vigorous, publicly verifiable testing, these missiles cannot be considered as having combat capability. Treating the parade as an operational demonstration is a major misconception. Chinese state propaganda suggests that these missiles could be mounted on a range of ships, including the Type 055 and Type 052D destroyers. However, in reality, larger missiles like the Eagle Strike 17 and Eagle Strike 20 would likely only be compatible with the newest destroyer models. These missiles, in their final attack stages, would slow to below Mach 5, making them less difficult to intercept than advertised. In modern naval warfare, the decisive factor is often air-launched anti-ship missiles. However, this is a significant challenge for the Chinese military. Attaching large and heavy missiles like the Eagle Strikes to aircraft such as the J-16 is nearly impossible, given the limitations in the aircraft's suspension points, landing gear strength, and clearance. Even if a few missiles could be carried, the aircraft's range and maneuverability would be severely compromised, turning it into a vulnerable target. What about using the H-6 bomber to carry these missiles? The H-6 is slow and lacks stealth capabilities, requiring fighter jets and refueling planes for long-range missions. Refueling planes, however, are prime targets for the US military during conflict. Relying on a fragile platform for a key strike mission presents a significant paradox. Modern warfare emphasizes system integration. The ability of a missile to hit its target depends not only on the missile itself, but also on the entire kill chain, which includes detecting, locking onto, and continuously tracking the target. This is where the Eagle Strike missiles face their most critical challenge. At sea, relying on a warship radar alone to detect an aircraft carrier hundreds of kilometers away is highly ineffective. Without stable satellite early warning aircraft or drone data to rely target information, a missile on a warship is essentially blind. Warships in modern naval warfare mainly serves as platforms for air defense and anti-submarine operations, not as primary attack forces. In contrast, the US military has integrated satellites, E-2D early warning aircraft, F-35 fighters, P-8A anti-submarine planes, MQ-4C drones, and the radars of all naval vessels into a unified shared situational awareness network. The strength of this network lies in its decentralization. Destroying one satellite or early warning aircraft doesn't blind the entire system. There are other assets that can continue to relay data. The US military strategy is not to wait passively for incoming missiles. Instead, they prioritize attacking the kill chain itself, disrupting satellite communications, targeting relay drones, jamming early warning systems, and using decoys and electronic countermeasures to misdirect missiles. Ultimately, the outcome of a conflict is determined not by the speed of the missile, but by the stability and resilience of the kill chain. Focusing too much on missile parameters while ignoring vulnerabilities in the kill chain reflects the naivety of a military that has not yet been tested in combat. The parade displayed not a mature, reliable weapon, but rather a systemic uncertainty. It highlights that in terms of weapon deployment, the Chinese military is still grappling with internal challenges and exploration, with a long way to go before achieving full capability. Jinglei-1, a nuclear puzzle or a political tool. The Jinglei-1 missile is not a technological breakthrough. It's simply an old platform repurposed with a new attention-grabbing label. It enhances the visibility of the missile during the parade, but not its real combat effectiveness. Some online articles have made exaggerated claims suggesting that the presence of a single Jinglei-1 missile on a H-6 bomber would be a game changer. However, the reality is different. The H-6N can only carry one missile, not because of the missile's extraordinary capabilities, but because this older aircraft has limited capacity. The low firepower density means that while the missile looks impressive during a parade, it would be a vulnerable target in real combat. To evaluate the range of a missile, one must consider its materials and fuel. In the case of Jinglei-1, its potential to become an intercontinental missile is unrealistic. The best solid rocket fuel available in China is the N-15 propellant, which is about 5% less efficient than the NEPE-75 used in the US Trident II D5 missiles. Additionally, the carbon fiber used in the missile's shell is still a few generations behind the international standard, such as the T1100 grade. These shortcomings means that in order to reach intercontinental ranges, the missile would have to be large and bulky. Current intercontinental missiles have a diameter of at least 2 meters. The Jinglei-1, with a diameter similar to the Dongfeng 15, is far smaller, which makes it physically impossible to achieve the claimed intercontinental range. Beyond the technical limitations, there is the issue of practicality. In 2025, an older non-stealth H-6 bomber will be easily detected by any adversary. Once airborne, it would be immediately noticed. The Russian Tu-160 strategic bomber, far more advanced than the H-6, is cautious about entering conflict zones like Ukraine. In contrast, the H-6, with its limited stealth capabilities, would be a clear target for modern air defense systems. As for the possibility of mounting the missile on a future H-20 stealth bomber, this is unlikely. No strategic bomber's bomb bay can accommodate the Jinglei-1 large size. If mounted externally, it would compromise the bomber's stealth capability. Even if the H-6 could safely launch the missile from home base, its range would be limited. The most optimistic estimate for the Jinglei-1's range is around 1,500 kilometers, which would only allow it to target nearby regions like Japan, South Korea, and the Philippines. However, this capability was already achievable years ago with the Dongfeng 21, which has a range of 1,800 kilometers. The Dongfeng 26, with a greater range, offers a more capable option. Land-based missiles are also more reliable, faster to deploy, and cheaper than using a vulnerable bomber to perform the same task. As for using it to target the US mainland, China could achieve this with established intercontinental missiles like the Dongfeng 5C or Dongfeng 41. There's no need for unnecessary exaggerated measures like this. The claim that the Jinglei-1 can achieve Mach 20 terminal velocity is also highly questionable. In reality, such speeds would make interception impossible, but the missile would likely burn up in the atmosphere before reaching its target, making missile defense systems unnecessary. Ultimately, the lack of real-world test footage, continuous launch videos, or confirmed hits on targets leaves doubts about the missile's true combat effectiveness. The Jinglei-1 seems more like a political tool, designed to fill the last gap in China's nuclear triad and presents a more complete story to the public. It is less about presenting a new powerful weapon and more about amplifying China's political message. Decoding Dongfeng 5C, China's non-threatening show of force. The Dongfeng 5C is a two-large liquid-fuel missile launched from a fixed silo primarily designed for heavy payloads. The so-called upgrade focuses not on propulsion technology, but on the ability to carry more MIRVs, multiple independently targetable re-entry vehicles, along with countermeasures and decoys to deceive enemy defenses. Its main purpose is to maximize the number of warheads and the area they can cover. This missile is actually not new. The US and Russia have similar systems. The main reason for China showcasing the Dongfeng 5C is not to demonstrate military superiority, but to signal a strategic message. This is my trump card. Don't push too hard, and let's negotiate. It's important not to take online speculations too seriously, suggesting that China is about to go to war. Real power doesn't always require action. It can also come from strategic positioning, as demonstrated by figures like Trump. Beijing's show of force is a negotiation tactic, not an indication of implementing conflict. The Dongfeng 5C has clear weaknesses. Its silo is fixed, and its coordinates are likely known to the US military. Liquid fuel, while storable, requires preparation before launch, making it vulnerable to preemptive strikes. The missile's real purpose is to threaten, not to be used in actual conflict. Its appearance at the parade is meant to present the worst-case scenario, mutual destruction, as a negotiating tactic to prevent war, not to start one. The claim that the Dongfeng 5C can be kept fully fueled and ready to launch in minutes lacks credible, publicly available evidence. There is no verified data on the missile's warhead capacity, countermeasures, or successful test launches, and China's state propaganda should be treated with skepticism. As long as Beijing has diplomatic options, it is unlikely to seek military confrontation.